Hello, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. In today's episode, we're exploring the evolution of language. We'll answer some big questions like how do languages come to existence? Why can't your cat master verb conjugations no matter how patient you are? How do governments use language to shape culture, identity, and even global power? And lastly, what happened to a language when people stopped speaking it? Let's rewind the clock to humanity's origins. Before smartphones, before writing, and even before fire, early humans had to communicate somehow, right? But without words, they relied on gestures, grunts, and maybe the occasional primal scream. Essentially, every conversation looked like an intense game of charades. Over 10,000 of years, these simple sounds transformed into complex language, each with its own grammar, vocabulary, and regional flair. But here is the twist. Language isn't static. It changes constantly, evolving with time. Think about how English has morphed. Shakespeare would probably be horrified by our casual use of emojis as words right now. Languages evolve in fascinating ways. Take sound shifts, where the pronunciations of words changes over time. For example, in Old English, the word night was pronounced night. But now the letter ke has gone completely silent. Then there is word borrowing, where languages steal or more linguistically borrow words from one another. English is particularly guilty of this, happily adopting Schadenfreude from German, and Safari from Swahili, and Kung Fu from Mandarin. And what about different types of languages? Dialects are like siblings, similar but with their own quirks. You got British English saying crisps, while American English insists on chips. Then we have pidgins, not the pigeons, the birds. It's like a simplified language. It is essentially created when people need language to communicate, when people need to communicate, but don't share a native tongue. Over time, a pidgin might turn into a Creole, which is a full-fledged language with its own rules and our grammar, like the Haitian Creole or the Jamaican patois. Lastly, there are lingua francas too, which are essentially the global go-betweens of language world. English is the reigning champion today, but Latin and Arabic were the heavyweights of their time too. Let's face it, humans are the rock star of language. Sure, animals can communicate, bees can dance, dolphins click, and dogs bark, but none of them are writing poetry or cracking jokes. So what makes us special? First off, it's all about the brain. There are two regions responsible for language. There is the Broca's and the Wernicke's area. These two areas think of them as the backstage crew. They're responsible for language processing and making sure you don't mix up dessert and desert. Combine that with our unmatched cognitive abilities, like abstract thinking and problem solving, and you've got the perfect recipe for linguistic genius. Then there is our anatomy. The human vocal tract is uniquely designed to produce a huge variety of sounds, from the rolling R of Spanish to the click sounds of some African languages. Fun fact, babies are born able to produce every sound found in any human language. Over time, they narrow it down based on the language they're exposed to. It's like a baby's version of customizing his Spotify playlist. But language isn't just functional, it's imaginative. Humans can talk about things that don't exist, like unicorns or utopias, and guilt-free chocolate cake, of course. This ability to create and share abstract ideas has fueled art, science, and even memes. No other species come close. Now let's dive into the politics of language. Governments love to meddle in linguistics, shaping language to build national identity or sometimes erase it. Take the Irish Gaelic, for example. After Ireland gained independence, there was a major push to revive Gaelic as a symbol of Irish identity. It was taught in schools, broadcast on the radio, and celebrated in cultural festivals. But despite these efforts, English remained dominant in daily life. Today, thanks to passionate cultural movements and yes, apps like Duolingo, there is a renewed interest in Irish Gaelic. Contrast that with Turkey. In the 1920s, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk didn't just revive Turkish, he rebranded it. He swapped the Arabic script for the Latin alphabet and replaced many Persians and Arabic loanwords with Turkish equivalents. It was part of a broader push to modernize and scrutinize Turkey, proving that even a language can get a makeover. But governments don't always have noble intentions. In the colonial era, indigenous languages were often suppressed in favor of the colonizer tongue. Today, we see a growing effort to revive these languages, from Maori in New Zealand to Hawaiian in the US, proving that language can be resilient even in the face of adversity. Language is more than a means of communication. It's a marker of identity and a tool of power. Take Quebec, for example, where French isn't just a language, it's a badge of cultural pride and resistance against the dominance of English in Canada. Laws like Bill 101 ensures that French is used in schools, governments, and businesses, preserving Quebec's unique identity in a sea of English speakers. Meanwhile, in Catalonia, Spain, Catalan is more than a regional language. It's a symbol of defiance and the rallying cry for autonomy. Despite political tensions, Catalonia has successfully promoted Catalan in schools and media, proving that language can be as powerful as any political movement. Language isn't just local, it's global. Countries use language as a form of soft power, spreading their influence through culture and education. English dominates thanks to the Hollywood Silicon Valley in pop culture, but other languages are stepping up. China's Confucius Institutes promotes Mandarin worldwide, while Spain's Instituto Cervantes spreads Spanish. Even regional languages like Swahili are gaining tractions, uniting East Africa and positioning the region as a linguistic and cultural force. Language is like a passport. It carries culture, values, and influence wherever it goes. By teaching a language abroad, nations plant seeds for future alliance and cultural exchange. When people learn a language, they come to empathize with the target culture. Basically, if I learn English, I will empathize, I will like American songs, I will consume American media, and then therefore the US has successfully made me an ally of the US. Languages, much like species, can go extinct. But unlike dinosaurs, they don't need an asteroid. A language disappears when it stops being spoken, often due to social, economic, or political pressure. It is estimated that one language dies every 2 weeks. Let that sink in. Every 2 weeks, we lose an entire world of words, stories, and ideas. Latin, the drama queen of extinct languages, once the lingua franca of Roman Empire, Latin faded from the daily use after Rome fell, surviving only in religious and academic circles. Today, it is considered a dead language, but it still sneaks in into modern languages like cameo in a movie. Think of words like etc. or the status quo. We use them on a daily basis, but we don't know that they are Latin. But extinction isn't always the end of the road. Some languages stage remarkable comebacks, like Hebrew, which was revived after centuries of being a sleepy language. With the establishment of Israel in the 20th century, Hebrew transferred from a liturgical language to one spoken by millions. This revival was no small feat. It required government policies, passionate linguists, and a shared national identity. Other languages are in a tug of war for survival. Indigenous languages like Innu in Japan and Inuktitut in Canada are being preserved and promoted by dedicated communities who refuse to let them disappear. Efforts include teaching these languages in schools, creating digital resources, and celebrating cultural festivals. It's a reminder that even a language on the brink can find its own voice. All right, then let's get a little bit philosophical for a second. Does language shape how we think? Spoiler alert, it absolutely does. Known as the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, this idea suggests that the language we speak influences how we perceive and interact with the world. Take the Piraha people of the Amazon. Their language lacks specific words for numbers. Instead of saying 3 or 5, they use terms like a few or a lot. As a result, their understanding of quantities differs from cultures with exact numerical systems. And then there is color. Some languages like Russian distinguishes between light blue and dark blue as separate colors, while English lumps them under blue Studies shows that speakers of such languages perceive and categorize colors differently. Even time isn't universal. English speakers often view time as linear, moving forward or backwards, while the Aymara people of the Andes visualize the future as behind them because it's unknown, and the past as in front of them because it's already happened. These examples show you how intertwined language is in our thought process. It's not just a means of expression, it's the lens through which we see the world. Now, let's fast forward to the digital age. Technology had a profound impact on how we use language, from texting and social media to translation apps and AI chatbots. Let's talk about texting. Abbreviations like LOL and emojis have created a new layer of communication. But instead of ruining language, they're actually making it more dynamic. Emojis, for example, function almost like a universal language, letting us convey emotions and ideas across linguistic boundaries. Social media platforms have also changed the way language evolves. Take Twitter's character limit, now called X, which forces users to be concise, where TikTok, where creative slang spreads like wildfire. Words like vibe check or sus didn't exist a few years ago, but now they're part of our daily vocabulary. Don't forget about translation apps. Tools like Google Translate and Microsoft Translator let us communicate instantly across languages. While they are not perfect, they're making the words smaller and even more connected. But all this change, there is a risk. Language that lack digital representations might be left behind. That's why efforts to digitize indigenous and endangered languages are so important. Imagine a world where every language has a place online. That is a dream we should all strive for. Now, what does the future hold for language? Will we all be speaking one universal language? Or will linguistic diversity thrive in new ways? Some experts predict that as globalization continues, a small number of super languages like English, Mandarin, and Spanish will dominate. Already, English is the default language of the internet, science, and business, giving it an unparalleled reach. But there is another possibility. Technology might empower linguistic diversity. With tools like AI right now, we can preserve and promote endangered languages, ensuring they don't just survive, but actually thrive. Imagine AI-powered apps that teach you Ainu or Cherokee in an engaging, interactive way. You should be able to learn a language really, really fast. One thing is certain, language will continue to evolve, and whether we're speaking in full sentences or memes, the beauty of language lies in its ability to connect people. Now let's talk about something incredible. Language isn't just something we actually learn, it is wired into us, meaning we are born with the propensity to learn a language. Humans are born with an instinct for communication. And you can see that from an early stage of development, there is a universal behavior called babbling. When babies are just a few months old, they start making repetitive sounds like ba ba ba, da da da. This happens all over the world, regardless whether the baby's parent speaks Swahili, or English, or Mandarin, or Arabic, they all babble. But here is a twist. Not all babblings happen out loud. Deaf babies too instinctively babble, but they do it with their hands if they're exposed to a sign language. They'll repeat gestures and they experiment with movements just like hearing babies experiment with sounds. Something else that shows that language is universal is the structure of language. All languages start with something very, very small, like a sound, they move to a syllable, and then to a word, and then to a phrase, and then to a sentence, and a paragraph, and an essay. This is true for all languages. All languages, they have the same structure. Maybe sometimes not as extensive as an essay, but all of them follow the same structure, which proves that language is universal. Language is truly humanity's greatest gift, a treasure trove of connection, creativity, and culture. I'm gonna leave you with this. What can we do as individuals to make sure that our native language doesn't go extinct? I guess that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you next time. Bye.